Whew. You guys ready to shred some nar-nar? All right, guys, if there is two things that I love in this world, it is Castlevania and pizza. Neither one of these things have anything to do with this video, but a couple of other things that I love in this world are snowboarding and video games. And when you put the two together, it's a match made in heaven. So in this video, I put a list of games together that I think are must-haves for any snowboarding video game enthusiast. I don't know if those exist, but if you're out there, these are the games that I think that you should own and have in your collection. Or hey, even if you are a extreme sports fan at all, if you liked games like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, maybe Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer, anything like that, check out some of these games and I'm sure you will love them. The first game on this list is 1080 Snowboarding. Now, I love 1080 Snowboarding simply for the fact that I feel like this was one of the snowboarding games that really kind of paved the way for the future snowboarding games. It was something that was so special to me because when you turned it on, the music was great, the graphics were awesome, and even though Cool Boarders on the PS1 was one of the first 3D snowboarding games, I felt like 1080 just cranked it up a notch. There were so many great things about 1080. You could, play with your friends in multiplayer. They had a trick attack mode. There was so many really cool features. Also, not only that, but they had a really odd product placement in this game, which was Tommy Hilfiger snowboarding gear, which I don't think even exists, was in this game. And also they had Lamar snowboards, which was a very reputable brand at that time. But the coolest thing about 1080 Snowboarding is that even though it is a pretty old game and is on the Nintendo 64, it does hold up pretty well for a snowboarding game. So if you do have a Nintendo 64 still, I highly suggest you get 1080 Snowboarding. You can play with friends, you can go on trick attack mode, you can do the racing mode. There's so many great modes in this game. It is definitely one of the games that you must have in your collection. Next up, we have Snowboard Kids. Now, Snowboard Kids is a pretty cool game because they take elements from a game like Mario Kart where you get different types of power-ups and you can shoot these power-ups at your opponents. And while you're racing down the mountain, you pretty much pick up coins, and with those coins, you can use them to hit these different types of blue and red present boxes. Now, each one of them has a different type of power-up you can use in the game. I believe the blue ones were something like, will send you, put a rocket behind your back and make you go much faster, while the red ones become, something like a frying pan that will shoot up into the sky and smush the rest of your enemies. There's also stuff where you can shoot these snowballs and it turns your opponents into little snowmen that you can't control yourself at that point. You kind of end up running into a wall or something. It makes them slow down. So that is a really cool feature that I think is awesome about Snowboard Kids. Not only that, but it has a very unique anime-esque art style, which I think is really, really awesome and fits really well with the game. And in Snowboard Kids 2, which is another game I feel like should be on this list because both of these games are fantastic, they actually add a story element to this game. So every time that you go into a race, you actually have a little cutscene that you can watch, and it kind of follows this line of this kid Damien who just pops up randomly. I believe he's the son of the devil, and you pretty much are trying to race Damien and, take him down. I don't really know what the storyline is word for word, but you get what I'm saying. So if you like anime art style, you like snowboarding, and you like storylines being part of your games, check out Snowboard Kids and Snowboard Kids 2. And disclaimer before you go looking for Snowboard Kids, it is getting on the pricier side for a Nintendo 64 game, so if you do go trying to find this game, be aware that it probably is going to be around $30 or more, so just keep that in mind. Moving on and moving up a console generation, we have 1080 Avalanche. Now, 1080 Avalanche is very similar to the original 1080, but they do change a couple of different things. For one, there's not some weird Tommy Hilfiger product placement in it, but they do add things like avalanches and different types of, maybe like a big snowball that's chasing you down the mountain there that you have to get away from. They do add a couple of features like that, but overall it's standard to a snowboarding game. It is just racing. There's not much trick elements in this game. You do have the ability to do tricks, but this game is not really based around doing tricks. So if you like racing snowboarding games, 1080 Avalanche is a great game to pick up. I will say that one annoying feature of 1080 Avalanche is the fact that if you get off balance, sometimes you have to wiggle the joystick very quickly to gain your balance back, which can create some issues if you're, going around a turn or something like that. If you have to wiggle your joystick, you aren't able to really control your character. So being able to do that really quickly will help, but sometimes it'll get a little annoying that when that, off balance screen pops up, you have to wiggle your joystick, you lose kind of, control of your character, and, it can be kind of annoying. Now, the next game I'm about to talk about is one of the most popular snowboarding games of all time. If you have never played this, I'd be very, very surprised, and that is SSX Tricky. Now, SSX Tricky is an awesome game because it really does focus on the racing aspect of snowboarding, much like the other games that I have mentioned already, but the cool thing about it is they did kind of add tricks in there, and that's where I saw the change of snowboarding games, in my opinion. There could have been other games where tricks were more prominent in snowboarding games, but SSX Tricky really had a heavy focus on having wacky, over-the-top tricks. You could take your board off your feet, swing it around your head, do all kinds of crazy stuff, land back on your snowboard, and everything was all right. But what makes SSX Tricky is the music that is in the game is absolutely fantastic. It fits really well with the aesthetic that they have going on in the game. Everything is super, super big. It is very exaggerated. Don't expect to see any of this kind of stuff on a snowboarding mountain if you ever were to go snowboarding, or if you do go snowboarding. You're not going to see anything like that in SSX Tricky. SSX Tricky is a very, very unique game. I think it is one of the best snowboarding games if you were just looking for flat out fun, where you can just hang out with your friends, maybe race down the mountain and pull off some really insane tricks. There are a lot of really cool modes that you can pretty much, go and just focus solely on doing tricks, or you can, race with your friends, do the campaign. Everything that you would ever want to do in a snowboarding game is in SSX Tricky, and you must own this if you have a Xbox, a PlayStation. I believe it was on GameCube as well, but I'm not too sure. I never played it on the GameCube, but I definitely played it on PS2 and original Xbox. If you want my personal suggestion, I think that you should get it on original Xbox because it looks absolutely fantastic on original Xbox. Aside from other consoles, original Xbox also had snow particles that were falling from the sky, as where the other consoles did not have stuff like that. Not only that, but if you have an HD cable like the Pound HD cable, or maybe something like the Hyperkin Panorama cable, you can actually increase the video quality of your original Xbox and make it look even better. So now that we have gone over a few titles that I feel are family friendly and good to play with friends, stuff that is really kind of based around racing, I kind of want to move over into the other side of snowboarding video games, and that is the games that focus heavily on tricks and high scores and things of that nature. So the first game on this section of the list is Shaun Palmer's Pro Snowboarder. Now, if you've ever played anything like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, very, very similar in nature, but obviously you are snowboarding instead of skateboarding. So in this game, you pretty much will be doing the exact same style of things that you would in a Tony Hawk Pro Skater game, where you'll be rushing down the mountain. You will be looking for a set amount of letters to spell something. You will be doing high score challenges, or maybe just doing some random mission depending on the mountain that you pick and whichever stage you're on. So you could be doing anything from smashing signs, or helping someone save little penguins from being tossed off the side of a mountain. I don't know. There's a ton of different things that you can do in Shaun Palmer's Pro Snowboarder. It is very friendly to anyone who wants to just pick up a game, do some really cool tricks. It is not a complicated control layout, so if you're looking for a snowboarding game just to kind of dabble in, do some really cool tricks, Shaun Palmer's Snowboarder is pretty much the game to go to for your first snowboarding game if you want some simplicity, yet you really want to pull off some cool stuff as well. All right, the next game I want to talk about is pretty much the reason why I wanted to make this video in general, and it is probably the best snowboarding game of all time, and that is Amped 2. Now, AMP2 is a very, very awesome game because it plays a lot like Skate 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you could picture a game like Skate, but snowboarding, that's pretty much what AMP2 is. Now, there are 3 parts of the AMP series, so there's AMP1, AMP2, and AMP3, but in my opinion, AMP2 was the one to top everything. Everything about this game was absolutely fantastic. It was so true to what snowboarding felt like, in my opinion. You could do everything from using your actual traditional snowboard, but if you even unlocked more things and more runs down the mountains, you could even use a snow skate, which I think is really, really cool, that you can pretty much do like snow skateboarding down these different trails. Now, AMP2 has a ton of different things that you can unlock, from characters to stages. Everything about this game is absolutely fantastic. I can't say it enough. If you like snowboarding games, AMP2 is a must-have in your collection. It is a must-have. There is no question about it. AMP2 is the best snowboarding game of all time. Now, AMP1 is a very, very good game, but I feel like AMP2 kind of just pretty much topped that, in my opinion. So if you want to, pick up all 3 AMP games because they are relatively very cheap. I'm pretty sure you could probably pick up all 3 of these games for under $10. AMP3 kind of veered off into a different direction than AMP1 and 2 and is a lot of fun. It does have a story element to it, much like I was talking about with Snowboard Kids 2, but you know, if you're trying to stick with traditional snowboarding games where you're just pulling off tricks and doing really awesome things, stick with AMP1 and 2, but if you like story elements in your games and you want something that's a little wacky and fun, AMP3 is a ton of fun as well. All right, and last but not least, we have Mark McMorris Infinite Air. Now, I'm sure most of you are probably like, Mark McMorris Infinite Air? I've never even heard of that game. This game came out exactly around the same time that Steep came out, and honestly, I'm pretty glad that I gave this game a shot because I picked up Steep thinking that I was going to get a very true-to-life depiction of what snowboarding felt like in a video game, but with Steep, I was a little let down. So when I picked up Mark McMorris Infinite Air, it definitely filled that void for me. Now, a couple of really cool things about Mark McMorris Infinite Air is the fact that it does play a lot like the skate games, much like the AMP series, and I really, really enjoy that aspect of this game. That is probably the best control setup that you can get for a snowboarding game or any skateboarding game for that matter, and it works so well for Mark McMorris Infinite Air. Another really cool thing about Mark McMorris Infinite Air is the fact that you can pretty much get in your Red Bull helicopter and fly around on the different mountaintops and kind of drop out wherever you really want to. Another really cool thing about the game is that even when you're doing something like that, you can pick someone else's park or some type of different run that they've created, because the mountain is actually updated always online from different tracks and trails that people have created online. You can actually get into the Red Bull helicopter, pick a different trail to drop out on and go down and experience this park or trail that someone created, and you don't have to like pay for any kind of different tracks. It is always kind of updating. Not only that, but you also have the career mode of the game as well, where you can pretty much go in and learn different moves, try to do high scores, follow these pros and try to beat their scores on their runs. The game is absolutely fantastic, so if you are looking for another game much like Amped but with more advanced graphics and a more updated control scheme, Mark McMorris Infinite Air is probably the snowboarding game that you wished you had but you didn't know about. So make sure you go check it out. All right guys, well that about does it for this video. Thank you so much for checking it out. If you liked it, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, share it with a friend. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for checking it out, and I'll see you next time.